Chapter 2. The Man Who Knows the Past. Present day, Paris, France. The letters felt heavier than they should have. Ellie gripped them tightly as she hurried through the narrow streets of the Latin Quarter, her heartbeat thrumming like a war drum. The rain had stopped, leaving the city shimmering under the streetlights, but inside her, a storm was raging. This didn't feel like an ordinary discovery. She had spent years writing about forgotten love stories, untangling the past for other people, but this felt personal. She reached the address scrawled on the bookstore owner's receipt and stared up at the building. It was an old library, tucked away from the tourist-filled avenues, its tall iron gates adorned with climbing ivy. Inside the library was the man who could help her, Theo Laurent. A historian, a researcher, and according to the bookstore owner, a descendant of the very family she was now chasing. She inhaled deeply and stepped inside. Theo Laurent looked up from his desk when she entered. He wasn't what she expected. His dark curls were tousled in a kind of way that suggested he spent more time buried in the books than in front of mirrors. His rolled-up sleeves revealed ink stains on his wrist, and his glasses, slightly askew, gave him the appearance of someone constantly caught between two worlds, the past and the present. Ellie hesitated, suddenly unsure of what to say. He raised an eyebrow. "Can I help you?" She held up the letters. "I think these belong to your family." For a moment, Theo didn't move. His gaze flicked from her face to the bundle in her hands, and something unreadable crossed his expression. Then slowly, he stood. "Where did you find these?" She swallowed, the weight of the moment pressing against her. "In a bookstore inside an old suitcase. The owner said they had been sitting there for years." Theo reached for the letters, but Ellie hesitated before handing them over. "I read one of them," she admitted. "The last letter. It was never sent." Theo's jaw tightened. "And?" Ellie's fingers curled under the edges of the fragile paper. She didn't know how to explain the strange, impossible familiarity she had felt reading those words. Instead, she simply said, "I think Celeste Laurent was in love with an American pilot named James Calloway, and I think he was looking for her, even after the war." Theo exhaled sharply. "James Calloway? You know the name?" His eyes darkened. "Yes, because he disappeared in 1943. 1942. Occupied France. The air smelled of rain and burning wood. James stood in the alleyway, his fingers itching to light a cigarette. He knew he shouldn't smoke. Across from him, Celeste paced, her boots kicking up dirt. "This is madness," she whispered. "You shouldn't be here." "I had to see you," he murmured. Celeste shook her head, but her eyes betrayed her. "If they catch you, they won't." "They will." Her voice broke slightly, but she recovered quickly. "And then what? They'll kill you. Or worse." James took a step closer. The world outside of his alley, outside of her, felt distant, unreal. "I'll take that risk." Her breath hitched. "Why?" He reached out, his fingertips brushing hers. "Because if I leave now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Celeste closed her eyes. "James." He cupped her cheek, tilting her face toward his. "Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me this doesn't matter." She opened her eyes, and then in them he saw everything. The war, the fear, the impossible love blooming between them. But before she could answer, a sharp whistle cut through the night. Something was coming. Present day, Paris, France. Theo's fingers traced the edge of the letters as he sat across from Ellie in the dimly lit library. These letters, he said quietly, shouldn't exist. Ellie frowned. Why not? Because Celeste Larone never spoke of James Calloway. Ellie's chest tightened. She must have. Theo shook his head. No. She never told anyone his name. After the war, she never looked for him. Ellie's pulse raced. Why? Theo's gaze was heavy, unreadable. Because she believed he was dead. Silence stretched between them. Ellie's mind was spinning. Celeste never looked for James? James had written to her, but she'd never read the letters. Fate had kept them apart until now. Ellie swallowed hard. Then maybe it's time someone finds the truth. Theo studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Let's find out what really happened to James Calloway. And just like that, the past began to pull them in.